The Serial Killer Diaries, Part 2, by Jon Peters. They made it to the last stall, and my heart jumped to my throat. I'd forgotten the burlap sack that I'd used to carry Jojo. It was laying inside the stall, propped up against the side wall, but that was the least of my problems. I'd buried my bodies deep into the earth, but I was concerned that they would discover the fresh-packed earth that Jojo was buried in. My only saving grace is that the barn is rather dark, and that Dredger hadn't brought a flashlight. Sunlight filtered through the windows of the rafters, and Dredger had kept the door open to let more sunlight into the barn. But the stalls were quite dark. I was still splayed among the rafters. I watched as Dredger's friend inspected the last stall. Just like he had the other stalls, he poked his head inside and then moved on. I was relieved, to say the least. I risked a deep breath and then watched them as they left through the front of the barn. The doors closed behind them and the lock was set. I wondered if Dredger thought it suspicious that the lock was open when he arrived, but he hadn't said anything to the other man, so I assumed he thought nothing of it. The barn was old, and it wouldn't be a stretch to think that he had forgotten to secure the lock years earlier. Now that Dredger was gone, I carefully climbed out of the rafters. I couldn't exit through the front door, but the window next to me would be easy enough to break. I could then jump onto the ground and make my escape. I didn't have anything to muffle the sound of the breaking glass, and I hadn't considered wrapping my shirt around my fist. Instead, I climbed down, and, after grabbing the burlap sack, I took the shovel and climbed back to the second story. I tapped on the window with the butt of the shovel, but it wouldn't crack. I took one hard jab at the window, and it split. Another punch with the shovel, and large pieces of window fell to the floor. The sound from the window breaking was far too loud. I jumped back down to the barn floor and tossed the shovel in its usual spot. I ascended the ladder again and, after pausing to listen for footsteps coming from the Dredger's house, I carefully removed the remaining glass, and then jumped down to the ground. I rolled as I hit cracked mud and popped up without a scratch. The morning was bright and hot. It was well past time for me to be home, so I jogged across the Dredger farm and back into the safety of the ditch. I took my time walking home, as there was nothing suspicious about a man on a stroll through the long, winding arroyo. I finally arrived home and dumped the sack in the fire barrel in my backyard. I then cleaned off my boots with a high-pressure water hose. I took a clean cloth from my garage and wiped my boots down well, inspecting them close with my headlamp. Satisfied that they were clean, I tossed them near the garage door and then went inside. I took off my clothes, washed them in cold water, and took a soothing cold shower. By the time I'd finished all my chores, it was lunchtime, so I sat down at my breakfast table and devoured a cold chicken sandwich. My work was finally finished. It's a great feeling when I've accomplished my goal. Now I can daydream of Jojo, savoring every moment I had with her, until the summoning takes over again. I can't predict when that might happen. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the next week, maybe even the next month. Turns out, I felt the summoning a week later, on a Sunday morning. We were in the middle of a heat wave, and the humidity was a sweltering 90%. This place is torture, but I would never leave. Too much killing to be had, and nobody knows these parts better than me. I've lived in Southeast Texas my entire life. The coast calls me like a siren does the seaman. I've spent countless hours watching the waves crash on the beach, the seagulls flying low against the waves, the seaweed piling up on the shore. I grew up here and I'll die here, and that's the only way I want it. It's easier than you might think to find a girl in the long expanse of Galveston Island. You've got to stay close to the seawall, though, because that's where the college girls hang out. The seawall is a 20-foot high concrete wall that divides the beach below and the main road above. The beach along the seawall is the most popular beach in Galveston. The pocket parks and lonely beaches to the west are often vacant of people, especially in the winter. But when it comes to finding the best college girls, you've got to go during the summer months or spring break. Many college girls will go to the better Texas beaches out by Corpus Christi. They love South Padre. It's a good place to fish for girls, but I hate the traffic during spring break. It's easier to stay in Galveston and hunt. There are more than enough girls to choose from. Like I said, it's hot as hell right now. It won't cool off until October. But the beaches are packed, and on an early July morning, I hop into my red Dodge 1994 pickup truck. It's got a white hardtop on the bed, and drive the 15 miles to marker 111 in the busiest part of the seawall. The idea of snatching a girl from the busy seawall beach came from watching documentaries about Ted Bundy. He'd drive to parks on a Sunday afternoon and steal a girl right in front of everyone. He was a genius. I must play it a little safer, though, because I can't park right on the beach. Everyone parks on the edge of the seawall, and that limits my options. But the con is like Bundy's. I act injured and find a solo girl to help me put something in my truck. I usually bring a big cooler, and I pretend like it's too heavy to get in the bed of my truck. I even brought a surfboard once. I put my arm in a sling, just like Bundy used to do, and I waited for the right girl to come along. Eventually I asked a petite brunette for help getting the board back into my truck. She was more than happy to help. It's amazing how they never stop to think on how a one-armed man would accomplish surfing. I've tried this method at the beach 4 times over the past 5 years. And this is why it works. I do it seldom enough that it doesn't look suspicious. The girls are never found, and it's assumed by the police that they just drowned. I do wonder how much longer I can get away with this. Galveston isn't known for strong riptides, and drownings don't happen often. However, there's plenty of drinking in the summer. Every college girl's got a drink in their hand. And I guess the authorities aren't suspicious of one death in the summer per year when large crowds flock to the sand. I packed my cooler with ice and a few beers, and made myself a sandwich from a leftover turkey I'd cooked on Saturday. Who said turkeys are only for Thanksgiving? Not me. Anyway, I get down to the seawall about 10 o'clock. The beach isn't packed yet, but it will be by noon. Pickup trucks and girls in American flag bikinis. There's no stereotype missing. This is red country, through and through. I don't mind it so much, though. It's noisy and nobody's paying attention to me. Not when they're getting shit-faced before noon, and bronzed girls with fake tits and pear-shaped asses are walking around. I'm more of a natural tit guy myself. My kryptonite is short brunettes with a petite frame and small tits. But I've grown to love the fake ones as well. Texas girls aren't like girls anywhere else I've ever been. They'll drink you under the table and ride you till morning, usually at the same time. I set up my cooler, lounge chair, and towel 20 yards in front of the seawall. The waves, small and disjointed, roll within 15 yards of me. I'm in the perfect spot. To my left is a giant black truck playing Tom Petty at full volume. 6 guys and 5 girls are setting up coolers, lounge chairs, and umbrellas, while 2 surfboards poke out from the bed of the truck. There's a brunette with them. She stands out against all the blondes, but she's not a good target. Too many friends around, too easy to get caught. With my sunglasses on, I apply some sunblock to my bronzed arms and legs. My chest and back are wider because I don't normally take my shirt off when I'm out in the sun. I lather as much sunblock as I can onto my body and then I lay back, watching the waves float toward the shore while keeping an eye out for the perfect woman. I dozed off, the gentle waves and the heat making me drowsy. When I awoke, not 10 feet from where I lay, 2 20-something girls were setting up shop. One was tall, about 5'8", with beautiful straight, dark blonde hair that blew across her face. She kept brushing it away with no success. Her body was lean, like she did a lot of cardio and Pilates. Her skin was tan, but it looked natural. Her feet were long and slender with high arches. There probably wasn't a more beautiful woman on the beach that day. But it was her friend that I was interested in. Her skin was porcelain. She lathered herself with sunblock, which I'm sure she did every time she went outside. She had a splash of freckles on her nose and upper cheeks. Her hair was auburn with streaks of dark blonde. She couldn't have been taller than 5'1", and she was no more than 100 pounds. Her breasts were small, but looked great on her body. She wore a dark green bikini, and I imagined she was smoothly shaved below. This was the girl for me. I didn't have a well-thought-out plan. I just waited for the opportunity to present itself. I picked up my book and read a few pages, letting my nerves settle. Believe it or not, I like romance novels. I like to pretend that I'm the guy that all the girls fawn over. Sometimes I'm a cowboy, other times I'm a sharply dressed businessman. The girls sunbathed for almost an hour. At one point, the blonde got a phone call, and whoever was on the other end must have asked who she was with, because she answered, "I'm with Caprice." After she got off the phone, she asked Caprice if she'd like to go into the water. "You go ahead," she said, her voice like a spring rain. "I'll be in shortly." "Don't pick up any guys without me," the blonde said, and then she sprinted into the waves. I couldn't believe my luck. I put my book down, sipped some water because my throat was dry, took a few deep breaths to slow my rapidly beating heart, and then took my sunglasses off and sat upon my towel. "Looks like your friend abandoned you," I said to Caprice, a smile across my face. By practice, I knew that this smile came across as friendly. I looked her straight in the eyes and made sure my body wasn't shifting around. That'll turn them cold in a second. "She's always doing that," Caprice said. She gave me a smile, her lips puffy and red and her teeth white. I took this opportunity to walk over to her and shake hands. I know I have a nice body, and I usually get some attention at the beach from women. I've got dark hair on my chest, but not so much that it looks bad. My hair is slightly curvy and brown, and I wear it short, but with enough length that it looks messy. My legs are thick, and my chest and arms are well defined. My eyes are dark green, and they are the part of my body that women comment on the most. "My name is Jerry," I said. I extended my hand as I kept eye contact with her. "Caprice," she said, her smile confident. She took my hand and her grip was delicate. My heart raced. I noticed her canine teeth as they looked more pointy and slightly larger than most. "Your teeth are beautiful. Did you get some type of cap on your canines, or are those real?" Normally I wouldn't comment on someone's teeth. That's a surefire way to get labeled a weirdo. But I took a chance with Caprice. She was too much of a snack to pass up, and her smile and eye contact, her eyes were light green, like a tropical sea, told me that she had a little devil in her herself. "They're natural," she said before laughing. "Do you mind if I join you?" I said, and then sat on her towel next to her before she could answer. She crossed her legs and faced me, her eyes shining. This was not this girl's first rodeo. "What's your friend's name?" I asked, pretending to be nonchalant. Inside, I was calculating moves far ahead. "That's Piper," Caprice said, and then waved at her. Piper had stopped swimming in the ocean and was checking up on us, trying to decide if Caprice needed help. I gave her a small wave as well, and that seemed to satisfy her. She went back to diving into the waves, several men hanging out in the area just in case she needed assistance. "Huh. She looks more like a Sydney," I said, and then turned my attention back to Caprice. "And you look just like how I thought a Caprice would look." Caprice playfully brushed my arm. Inside, I was doing cartwheels. I almost had her. "She does look like a Sydney," Caprice said, and then laughed. I pretended to look as if an idea had just formed. "Hey, I was just about to take off. I've got a prior engagement." I pointed at my truck, which was visible on the curb above the seawall. I'm parked right there. Why don't you help me put my stuff up and we'll exchange numbers? I'd love to take you out sometime. Do you surf? I pushed myself off her towel and extended my hand. She took it, and I pulled her gently onto her feet. I chanced a quick look in Piper's direction. She was nowhere to be seen. Was she swimming, walking the beach? Was she about to come up to us as we were leaving? I folded up my towel and handed it to Caprice, who took it without question. My day pack had my keys, my phone, and sunblock in it, and I slung it over my shoulder. I then grabbed the cooler, and we headed to the stairs of the seawall. I continued to scan the beach for Piper, but I didn't see her. My heart was thumping in my chest as we crested the stairs and walked toward my truck. The beach was crowded now, and there were no parking spots along the seawall. I tossed the cooler into the bed of my truck and then opened my passenger door. Caprice stood near me, her back to the beach, her phone in her hand, waiting patiently. I took another look toward the beach, and finally I saw Piper. She was just getting out of the water and heading toward her towel. I saw her look around in confusion as she noticed that Caprice was gone. "Let me grab your number," I said to Caprice as I reached into the glove compartment of my truck. Why I was doing so probably never occurred to Caprice because it happened so quickly. As she was getting her phone out to exchange numbers, I slipped to her side, shoved my right hand into her back, and with my left I pushed the chloroform-soaked rag into her face. She struggled for a second before the drug worked its magic, and I was able to lift her into the passenger seat. The entire process took no more than 5 seconds. I sat her up straight in the seat, buckled her in, and then shut the door. My windows were tinted, so I was sure that nobody could see her now, but what worried me was whether anyone saw what happened the moment before. I did a quick scan of the crowds, especially searching for Piper. I spotted her down on the beach, sitting on her towel, glancing up and down the beach for any sign of Caprice. She didn't look too alarmed yet, but I knew that would change in a few minutes after Caprice didn't show up. I needed to get out of there fast. The traffic was terrible. It took me 5 minutes just to move a block from where I had parked on the seawall. I was increasingly anxious. I kept imagining Piper catching up with me and spotting Caprice, even though she had not seen my truck. I gulped down an entire bottle of water while waiting for the light to change. Caprice was still out cold. I had the chloroform-soaked rag on the console between us and was ready to use it again, although I didn't want to, as that is dangerous. Too much of that stuff will kill you. I never carry a gun. That's the easiest way to get caught. In fact, I carry very little supplies. Besides the chloroform, which I store in my garage when not in use, the only other item I carry are zip ties. I store those in the garage as well when not in use. And that's the item I used while we were waiting for the light to change. I took a zip tie out of the center console and cinched Caprice's wrists together. I then did the same with her ankles. I finished just as the light turned green. 98th Street will take me all the way to the main road out of Galveston. I just need to make it a few miles past the bridge to the mainland and I'll feel safe. It's an easy drive to my place from the bridge, and the cops that patrol the highway going in and out of Galveston are scarce the farther away from the bridge I get. The traffic leaving Galveston is light. I drive just at the speed limit and hit the bridge 10 minutes later. To my right is the vast expanse of the Gulf, the water the color of robin eggs. I'm feeling great about how my trip turned out. I was worried there for a bit. I decided I'd never take another girl under those circumstances again. We were just about to hit 646 and the road to my home when I saw the cop. I was driving 70 on a 75-mile-per-hour highway. He was on the shoulder. As soon as I passed him, he roared onto the highway behind me, lights flashing. My heart jumped into my throat. And that happened to be the moment that Caprice stirred. I watched in horror as the cop caught up to me and Caprice moaned as she woke up. I shoved the rag into Caprice's face and she was out again. If anything, I could tell the cop she was drunk, and I was taking her home. What other excuse could I give? Just as I was about to pull into the shoulder, the cop switched lanes and flew right past me. I don't know who he was chasing, but I was more than relieved it wasn't me. I wiped the sweat off my face, and my shirt was soaked, so I cranked on the AC. I just dodged a major bullet. 646 flows east to west between I-45 and Highway 6. My house sits in an old neighborhood, right between the two highways. It took me 10 minutes to get into my neighborhood once I turned on 646. I was finally home. I opened my garage door, parked, and then closed the door behind me, ensuring privacy. I took Caprice inside and laid her on the living room couch. She was still out cold, but her pulse was steady. I put a cloth gag over her mouth and went to the bedroom to set up. I threw a plastic tarp over the bed and then laid out my electric trimmer, gloves, and nail polish. I carried Caprice to the bedroom and laid her on the plastic. Now, I just needed to wait for her to wake up, and then the fun would really begin.